The Rip is directed by Joe Carnahan with a screenplay by Joe Carnahan and a story by Joe Carnahan and Michael McGrale. The film stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Stephen Yeun, Teyana, Sasha, Calle, Catalina, Sandino, Moreno, Scott Adkins, and Kyle Chandler. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, a group of Miami cops discover a stash of millions in cash, leading to distrust as outsiders learn about the huge seizure, making them question who to rely on. I like both Matt Damon and Ben Affleck individually. No matter what movie they are in, no matter how good or bad, I still respect them for their individual paths that they have taken for themselves. But it's even better when they work together on a movie. It's just something about it. It just gets me so excited to just see these two just play off of one another, because you just can tell how much that they not only know each other, but just how much they are able to work with each other with ease. There's nothing about them that seems like they can't find a rhythm or their footing with one another. They just have that sort of link together, and they just manage to bring the best out of each other whenever a movie that they are both in simultaneously makes them just really amazing to watch. Having them in a crime film makes this a must watch for me, because having those two in there is great, but having this be also a crime movie, that's even exciting. Usually crime movies tend to have this sort of formulaic plot that revolves around crooked cops, cartel members, corruption within the justice system. That is usually the case on how much that genre has just been explored so many times and just been done a lot, that it's almost like, well, at this point, you just are kind of hoping for the best, for something to at least be at least watchable or entertaining to see. Seeing the promotional stuff for it, I was actually really looking forward to seeing what this had to offer and what this had to pretty much showcase with having both of these two guys in a film together could offer, especially for Netflix, because let's face it, we all know Netflix tends to be hit or miss, but a lot of the times misses. I mean, they usually just make content for their streaming service, and you'll get rare gems, you'll get good ones, but then you'll get a lot of times just really bottom of the bin type of movies. With these two in a movie for streaming service, then it must be worth their time and worth watching if they are involved. Having said that, I was legit pleasantly surprised on how well this turned out. This could have been just the most generic, formulaic, and I will address that in a bit, but like more so just kind of middle of the road, like, alright, this is just kind of average. I'm not really excited of what I'm watching. At least there are good aspects, but for the most part, it's kind of disposable and throwaway. No, I generally mean I was legit surprised on how well this actually turned out, for as much as it is a generic plot. Because, yes, I get it. I know I'm going to get stopped and say, Zach, look at this movie. Are you really telling me that this film is definitely worth the time? Because, I mean, it is something that you just said has been done so many times. Yes, but there's a way to do it to where even if it's a tired trend or something that you've seen 100 times, it could still pull off very well. That's the thing. It all depends on how this is all conveyed and how this is all executed. Yeah, this could be just a simple plot and it could just be fine, or you can make it a little bit better. You can try to kind of take it in what the director, Joe Carnahan, wants to do with it and try to kind of maneuver it into sort of being what you kind of expect for a movie like this, but then try to be its own self-contained type of movie that doesn't try to be anything bigger, but also doesn't try to be like average at best. This was just a well-made and effective crime film that I just was pleasantly surprised that Netflix was able to just conjure up. Because, like I said, if we all know Netflix, you know that they are just doing it so that way they can just get more subscribers. But in this case, I gotta give them credit. But before discussing my few issues, and I legit have some complaints of mine, here are the positives that I found with the film. The performances are solid. The cast, but of course in particular Damon and Affleck, brought their A game to this Netflix film, keeping this exciting to watch. Like I mentioned, when you have both Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, they just naturally work together, just on a dime. There's nothing about them that feels like they struggle with trying to get a scene together. They are always just electrifying to watch individually, but they are even more exciting to watch when they are on screen together. And of course, again, the supporting cast is all there as well. Stephen Yeun, Taylor. A lot of the performances have to do kind of the heavy lifting for a crime film like this. And yeah, when you have these actors, but again, Damon and Affleck just leading the charge. They help set that tone and vibe for this movie to help kind of carry itself to the finish line. The direction is on point. Director Joe Carnahan makes sure to keep things contained and tight for its story to stay focused, allowing it all to be really consistent. I was happy to see, for a crime movie of this caliber, actually feel like it was made, but actually felt Joe Carnahan really wanted to put a lot of effort into making sure that this is a crime film that you would come across and you would actually want to watch. It's not something like it's an afterthought. It never felt to him that this was just a project that he just so happened to get himself involved in and he's just doing the best he can. No, I truly think that he really put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into how this movie had to go, how it was supposed to kind of convey this sort of intense, heightened suspense that you would get from a crime film. And a lot of times, a lot of crime movies just kind of have this sort of blending of each other and not being able to differentiate each other. This movie actually was able to at least stand out because of the fact that Carnahan was able to, at the very least, keep things actually mostly compact, especially throughout this entire movie when they are just mainly in one area, which is, of course, like the house location. And I think that was probably the smartest choice to do, because they could have just done a stereotypical crime film where they go all around Miami. But the fact that they were able to just stay for the majority of the movie in one location is, I think, the best move that they could have done. Now, it goes a little bit outside of that as the movie goes on, but for the main portion of this movie, it is all within one confined, or at the very least one vicinity, which is a neighborhood and a house. And I think he was able to keep that being the center point for it until, like I said, the movie keeps on going. The story is intriguing. Following these Miami cops sees a huge stack of money, and figuring out who's involved with it made for an engaging plot. It may not be wholly original, because like I said, this is not a very original plot idea, okay? It is not by any means, but at least it was done well enough. Because again, they didn't have to put as many effort into this. They didn't have to try to be as thought out as it can be. They were able to just make it as entertaining as it is, but just knowing that for a plot like this, for as much as it is not going to be revolutionary, it's at least one that is competently made and felt like there was a very strong foundation for what this movie was, and just really kind of echoing the vibes of like past like sort of crime movies that stood out more than a lot of others. It's nice to have this sort of idea of crooked cops, but really just Miami cops being involved in a seizure of a lot of money, and to have them really mistrust one another throughout the entire night, questioning who's involved with the money and how this movie kind of presents and pokes at who could be who. I think that was really surprisingly handled effective way than most of the movies of this caliber usually really stumble and fail at. The action is tense, though not many, because there is not a lot of action parts in here. It does help with making things entertaining and grounded, feeling intense when it does happen. And while I do have an issue a little bit with some of it, like in terms of how it's a little bit filmed, and I will address that in a little bit, I do think that the action is able to be a little bit grounded in an approach to where it's not bombastic, it's not crazy, it's not going for really huge explosions and long car chases. It's a fairly simple shootouts and a chase or two, but there's never this feeling of having to be like how most of the crime films tend to be in terms of just doing the cliches. They are able to still dabble in it, but not be to where it is more about being excessive with it than learning when to restrain itself and just still focus on what the narrative is more so than the actual action set pieces. The music is atmospheric. Composer Clinton Shorter creates a tense and electric score that fits what a crime movie should be. It allows for the tension to build and to set the mood. Clinton Shorter, not familiar with his work, but here I think he really was going for a classic crime vibe that really echoes of other crime movies or shows, that really invokes the feeling of what a movie like this should feel and how it should really set that tone and that heightened sense of suspension, and how it is able to really blend itself together to where it's able to feel as effective as it is. feel as energetic, making you really get involved in the scenes that do happen. And it really does build the tension. Because whenever they start to mistrust one another, hear that music building and building and building. And it's able to work so effectively because with that plot, it's able to help the music also convey what's happening in the film to make that story feel effective. The cinematography is on point. Cinematographer Juan Miguel Espirizo captures a small but chaotic look of this whole situation. While it can get a little bit shaky in the action department, the problem that I have a little bit, but it's not like to where it's completely ruining of the movie. I'm just saying there are a couple of times where it can get a little bit too shaky for me. It still retains its grit and style because if you are able to at the very least stay within the boundaries of what your movie tends to look, and at the very least still make an effort to go for more heightened moments, intense feeling, then this movie still is able to do that. And I can then look the shakiness of some of the action to where it doesn't really like affect my viewing experience, because at the very least I got a tone, I got a setting, I got a mood that really is conveyed throughout this movie. And even if the action can be a little bit jarring, I'm at least able to kind of get over that and still appreciate the vibe and the look appeal of what Miami is during the day, but really at night. The production is effective. With this being Netflix, you see all the talent that's behind the camera. No questions about that. And of course, when you have Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, of course, you're going to get some real good talent. Plus, having those two making sure that the crew gets some money back to them is inspiring to see. Now, it also depends on how successful this movie is, but Damon and Affleck's company, they want to ensure that the production team is able to be compensated for their work. And I think that's really cool, especially for these two guys, because they are already successful as it is. And so the fact that they want to get back to artists that are behind the camera and putting a lot of work and effort into making sure that these movies look as good as they can is impressive. And yeah, sure, it looks like of Netflix quality, but I still appreciate knowing that those two are willing to really give back to the film community, or at the very least people who want to be in this field. They can be inspired to still go on and have a career in this industry. The writing is thought out. Carnahan makes situations feel intense and delivers on great dynamics between the cast. It allows for heightened moments and twists, even if a bit predictable. Because a plot like this, you're going to have some writing here, but I will give credit. He is able to keep things as claustrophobic or as nail biting in certain scenes that it makes for effective moments, and the conversations that the characters have make it kind of question who you think is involved in this money scheme and how it is all set up. And I think that is what works about this movie is as long as the cast can still kind of elevate writing that you could still say is maybe not 100% amazing, but it is still good enough to where they are able to kind of take that and elevate it even higher. I think that is the best part about it. And I think Carnahan was able to write scenes that still feel tension filled, but you have that cast, they are able to make it even better. That said, there's a couple slip ups that hamper it down, and these are ones that maybe some people may agree or not, so here are now my negatives. The pacing runtime is extended. Each scene feels indecisive on being slower or faster. This is sort of feeling of either it wants to be focusing on the conversational heavy parts, or they want to then make it super fast with its action. While I appreciate having some action here, I feel like sometimes it's short and sweet more than trying to find this middle sweet spot. With a runtime of 1 hour and 53 minutes, it could have been cut down, I think, by 8 to 13 minutes. I don't think this needed to be almost close to a 2 hour mark. And while usually I'm fine with action movies being like that, this is where I watch the story and I watch the narrative. I'm like, well, I don't think this needed to be as long as it did. I think it could have been cut down just a tiny bit for it to feel as effective as it is. The editing is inconsistent. Cuts would be fine at times, but can be quick cutty at certain parts, especially some of the action can be a little bit choppy at times, making things kind of go back and forth with itself. Because sometimes that editing can be as good as it is, but then once it kind of goes into the action, it just kind of seems like there's a lot of, do they want to make this as really quick cutty as it is, or do they really want to just get to the point of how the action is displayed more so with longer takes? But again, that would then kind of conflict with the pacing and runtime of this. So really necessarily it just seems like there could have been a way of compromising some of those dramatic parts a little bit down to where you could still make the action feel as fluent as it is. It may seem generic, but The Rib manages to be effective on delivering a solid crime film that keeps it pulled in. With a stellar cast, fun plot, intense music, and grounded camera work, it's able to prove that even basic ideas can succeed. That's what I appreciate with this movie, is that even if it's generic, even if it is not 100% wholly amazing in terms of being this redefining of the crime genre, I can at least respect the idea that a lot of hard work was put into this and a lot of thought and care was planned out when it came to the narrative, and it really kept me really interested in what was going on. And so I was able to look past some of the generic stuff, because a lot of movies, when you look at it, especially movies that are either great to amazing, some of them have kind of normal generic plots, but they are able to pull it off simply because of the fact that at the very least, if you could still find a lot of entertainment in it, more so than the bad, I can at least respect it. Art always kind of sometimes imitates itself. So I am fine with how most crime movies try to be like itself, but if it's a little bit done well, I'll at least give it a pass. I'm going to give The Rip an 8 out of 10. A solid, great watch if you have Netflix. It's one that I think not a lot of people will mind seeing Matt Damon and Ben Affleck just solving this huge bust that they found, and having those action set pieces there as well as some of the high end tension, I think does make this a good watch. Hopefully the people watching it are not looking at their phones. Please, I would recommend this for an actual good watch rather than one where you have to always be looking at your phone and just going and doing something else and having that on in the background. Really, I hope that that is the case, because this is a movie that is definitely enjoyable and really fun to watch. So that is it, you guys. That is all the January movies. Not a very long month for reviews, but at the very least, one that I appreciate watching and probably one of the best I've seen January's. Yeah, next month is going to be interesting. Not a lot there, but hey, we're going to make it work. So yes, look forward to those reviews and other reviews coming soon.